What happens when a beloved daytime host goes head-to-head with a royal guest who refuses to follow the rules? You won't believe what happens when Prince Harry sits down with Kelly Clarkson for what was meant to be a light-hearted chat about his new projects, only for the interview to spiral into a tense confrontation that left the studio audience stunned and producers scrambling. The tension on last night's episode of The Kelly Clarkson Show has everyone talking, and the footage is jaw-dropping. Before we dive in, make sure you subscribe and leave a comment, because the clash between these two powerhouses is one of the most dramatic moments in daytime television this year. Studio 6B was electric, as Kelly prepared for what her team had promoted as an intimate conversation with Prince Harry about his latest charitable work and memoir updates. Something felt different the moment he walked on set. His usual charm seemed forced, his smile more rehearsed than genuine, and an underlying tension was palpable. Kelly, known for her warm, welcoming style, began the show with her signature energy, but those familiar with her could detect a subtle shift. Sources close to the production revealed that Harry's team had made several last-minute demands about off-limits topics, including his relationships with King Charles, Prince William, or details of his ongoing legal battles with the British press. "Welcome back to the show, Prince Harry," Kelly began, her voice warm but edged, signaling she wouldn't be pushed around. It's always interesting when guests come with very specific guidelines about what we can discuss. Harry's reaction was immediate. His posture stiffened, and his practiced smile faltered. "Well, Kelly, I think it's reasonable to focus on the positive work we're doing," he said. Instead of revisiting old grievances, the audience, initially excited to see him, began sensing the tension. Kelly leaned forward, journalist instincts kicking in. "Isn't it interesting how you can write entire books about grievances and profit from them? But suddenly, they're off limits when you don't control the narrative." The question hung in the air. Harry tried to deflect with a laugh, but his eyes betrayed irritation. There's a difference between sharing one's truth thoughtfully and being subjected to gotcha journalism on daytime TV. Kelly's eyebrows shot up at the barely veiled insult. The audience could feel the room's temperature shift. Kelly's reputation for warmth and authenticity clashed with what had become Harry's calculated public persona since leaving the royal family. "Gotcha journalism," Kelly repeated, her tone a warning. "Asking about publicly documented events and statements isn't gotcha journalism. It's having a conversation." Harry shifted uncomfortably, unprepared for pushback. "Look, Kelly, I came to talk about our mental health awareness and veteran support work, not to be grilled about family dynamics sensationalized by the press." The irony wasn't lost. A man who had shared intimate family details now claimed privacy when questioned. Kelly's composure began to crack. That's rich coming from someone who's made millions sharing those family dynamics. You can't profit from your story when it suits you, and then claim privacy when asked legitimate follow-up questions. Harry's face flushed. "I think you're being unfair and disrespectful. I've shared my story to help others struggling with similar issues, not for daytime TV entertainment." Kelly's laugh was sharp and humorless. "Help others or help your bank account from where I'm sitting. It looks like you've monetized your family trauma while playing the victim when anyone questions your version of events." The studio went silent, except for the camera's hum. Harry's handlers signaled frantically off camera, but the damage was done. The real Prince Harry was beginning to show behind the polished public image. "I don't have to sit here and be insulted," Harry said, voice tight. "I came in good faith to discuss important issues, not to be attacked by someone with their own agenda." Kelly's eyes flashed with anger. "My agenda is to have honest conversations with my guests, not to provide a platform for self-serving propaganda. You can't handle basic questions about your very public statements and actions. Maybe you shouldn't be doing interviews at all." The tension in the studio was thick as these two strong personalities faced off, neither willing to yield. What began as a straightforward interview was quickly devolving into something far more volatile. Everyone in the room realized they were witnessing television history unfold, and this was only the beginning. What followed would shock even the most seasoned TV professionals. The commercial break did nothing to calm the storm. While viewers at home saw ads for household products, the studio became a battleground of whispered arguments and frantic damage control. Harry's security team huddled with his publicist, their faces grave as they watched their client spiral. Kelly's producers were caught between loyalty to their host, Kay, and the looming public relations disaster. When the cameras rolled again, the tension had only intensified. Kelly, fully committed to holding Harry accountable, refused to let him off the hook. Years in the industry had taught her to spot manipulation, and she wasn't going to play along with his carefully curated victim narrative. "We're back with Prince Harry," Kelly announced, voice steady but eyes blazing with determination. Before the break, we discussed the contradiction of demanding privacy while writing tell-all books and giving exclusive interviews about your family. Harry's jaw tightened as he realized Kelly wouldn't ignore their earlier confrontation. His team had advised him to reset the tone, but wounded pride made backing down impossible. "Kelly, I think you're deliberately mischaracterizing my motivations," he said, voice carrying the entitled tone he often used when challenged. "Everything I've shared has been in service of important causes and to help people understand the impact of media harassment and institutional racism." Kelly's response was swift and cutting. "Oh, please. You've turned family grievances into a cottage industry Netflix deals, book advances, speaking fees while claiming you just want to help people. If your goal was truly to help, you'd do it quietly, not hold press conferences about it." The audience gasped at her bluntness. This wasn't the gentle host they were used to. It was someone who had reached her limit with celebrity self-importance. Harry's composure finally cracked. "You have no idea what you're talking about," he snapped, voice rising, making several audience members shift uncomfortably. "You sit here in your comfortable studio, making millions from your talk show, and lecture me about profiting from my experiences." Kelly's laugh was sharp and cold. "The difference is, I don't pretend my show is a public service. I don't wrap my career in helping others while trashing my family for profit. At least, I'm honest about what I do." The prince's face flushed with rage, his carefully maintained public image unraveling. "Honest? You want to talk about honesty? How about your career, built on playing the relatable girl next door while living in a mansion and making more money than most people see in a lifetime?" Kelly's eyes flashed with hurt before hardening. "You're right, Harry. I do make a lot of money and live well. But I've never claimed to be a victim while profiting from that victimhood. I've never written books trashing my family or painted myself as a martyr while cashing millions." Harry stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "I don't have to sit here and be insulted by someone who clearly doesn't understand the complexities of my situation." Kelly remained seated, voice deadly calm. "Sit down, Harry. You came on my show. You've been touring the media circuit, selling your story. If you can't handle questions about it, maybe you should have stayed in your California mansion instead of seeking more publicity." Harry's security team grew visibly tense, unsure whether to intervene. Harry himself wavered between storming off and maintaining some dignity. His media training battled his fury, creating a volatile mix everyone in the studio could feel. "You know your problem, Kelly," Harry said, voice dripping with condescension. "You're threatened by people who actually stand up for what they believe in. You're comfortable in your bubble of celebrity worship and softball interviews. You can't handle a real conversation with someone trying to make a difference." Kelly's response was immediate and brutal. "Make a difference? You've done nothing but make things worse for your family while enriching yourself. Want to talk about making a difference? How about the effect your public attacks have had on your father's health? Or how your interviews have impacted your brother's children?" The studio fell silent as Kelly crossed a line everyone knew would have consequences. Harry's face drained of color, then flushed red as Kelly's words sank in. His hands trembled visibly as he pointed an accusatory finger at her. "How dare you?" he whispered, voice thick with emotion. "How dare you bring my family into this? You know nothing about my relationships or the pain they've caused me." Kelly leaned forward, equally intense. "I know what you've told the world about them. I know you've made millions sharing private conversations and painting them as villains. If you didn't want your family relationships discussed, you shouldn't have made them public property." The confrontation had reached a point of no return, and everyone in the studio knew it. What happened next would surpass even the most dramatic expectations. Harry's body shook with rage as he loomed over Kelly, who remained seated, chin raised defiantly. His carefully constructed public image had crumbled, exposing the entitled, petulant man beneath the polished exterior. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely restrained fury. "You want to play this game, Kelly? Fine. Let's talk about family. Let's talk about how you've built your brand as America's sweetheart, while your personal life has been a series of public disasters, divorces, custody battles, weight struggles, all for public consumption. At least I'm honest about my pain. I don't pretend everything is perfect while falling apart behind closed doors." The audience gasped at the vicious personal attack. Kelly went pale, but her resolve hardened. She rose slowly, her voice quiet and deadly. "You want to go there? Really? Let's talk about honesty, Harry. Let's talk about how you spent years demanding privacy while courting every media outlet that would pay you. Let's talk about how you've weaponized your mental health struggles to shield yourself from criticism while attacking anyone who's ever cared about you." Harry laughed bitterly. "Weaponized? I shared my struggles to help others, something you clearly wouldn't understand from your privileged position of never facing real adversity." Kelly's eyes blazed. "Never faced adversity? I grew up poor, Harry. I worked multiple jobs to support my family. I've gone through divorce, custody battles, and public scrutiny that would break most people. The difference is, I didn't turn my pain into a profit center while destroying my relationships in the process." Harry's security team whispered urgently among themselves, concerned whether to intervene. Harry seemed beyond reason, his royal composure entirely abandoned. "You think you know me?" he snarled, stepping closer. "You think you understand what it's like to have your entire life dissected by the media, to watch your mother's death turned into entertainment, to see your family prioritize an institution over your well-being?" Kelly didn't flinch. "I think I understand a man consumed by his own victimhood who can't see how his actions have hurt those who love him. I understand someone confused between publicity and purpose, profit and progress." The cameras captured every moment. Harry's fists were clenched, his breathing shallow and rapid. For a moment, it seemed he might completely lose control. "You know what, Kelly?" he hissed. "You're everything that's wrong with American celebrity culture. You're fake, shallow, desperate for relevance. This interview is just another rating stunt, attacking someone who's actually trying to make a difference." Kelly's response was swift and merciless. "Make a difference? You've made yourself a professional victim while alienating everyone who loves you. You've turned your family's private pain into public entertainment while claiming moral superiority. You're not making a difference, Harry. You're making a living off your trauma while creating more of it for everyone around you." The words struck Harry like blows. His face twisted with rage, then flickered briefly with recognition before freezing into cold fury. "I'm done with this," Harry announced, his voice carrying the imperious tone of someone never held accountable. "I'm done with your attempts to humiliate me for your audience's entertainment." Kelly stood her ground, voice steady. "The only person humiliating you here is yourself. Harry, I'm just asking the questions your friendly media appearances have avoided." Harry turned sharply to his security team. "We're leaving." Then he spun back to Kelly, finger pointed. "You think you've won? You think this makes you look good? You've just shown everyone who you really are, a bitter, jealous woman who can't stand someone else succeeding. Kelly laughed coldly. Success? Is that what you call it? Destroying your family relationships, alienating friends, and turning personal pain into a business model. If that's success, Harry, I'm happy to be a failure. Harry's face contorted with rage. Without another word, he ripped off his lapel microphone and hurled it to the floor. The small device skittered across the studio floor with a sharp crack. Harry's security team immediately moved to flank him as he stormed toward the exit, his expensive shoes clicking sharply against the polished surface. "This interview is over," he shouted over his shoulder, his voice echoing through the stunned studio. "And you can be sure my legal team will be reviewing every second of this footage." Kelly remained standing behind her desk, composure intact despite the chaos. "Good luck with that, Harry. Truth is an absolute defense, and everything I've said today is verifiable fact." As Harry reached the studio exit, he paused for one final pointed moment, clearly intending a devastating parting shot. "You know what, Kelly? You're going to regret this. You have no idea who you're dealing with." Kelly's smile was sharp and triumphant. "Actually, I think I know exactly who I'm dealing with, and I think America does, too." With that, Prince Harry stormed out, his entourage scrambling to keep pace. The heavy studio doors slammed behind him with a resounding bang, punctuating one of the most explosive confrontations in daytime television history. The audience sat in stunned silence for several long moments before applause began to swell. Kelly, still standing behind her desk, took a deep breath and straightened her shoulders. When she finally spoke, her voice was calm and professional, though her eyes still burned with intensity. "Well, folks, that was certainly unexpected," she said, warmth returning to her trademark tone. "I guess some people just can't handle being asked to explain their own public statements and actions." The applause grew louder, showing full support for their host, who had just confronted one of the most entitled public figures of the modern era. Kelly's producers frantically signaled from the wings, but she maintained her composure, addressing the camera directly. "We'll be right back after this commercial break, and when we return, we'll have a much more pleasant conversation with our next guest about their new cookbook." As the cameras cut away and studio lights dimmed, Kelly allowed herself a small smile of satisfaction. She had stood up to royal entitlement and media manipulation, and done so with the full support of her audience. What began as a simple interview had ended with one of the most dramatic exits in television history, and Kelly Clarkson had emerged victorious, her reputation for authenticity and integrity intact. While Prince Harry's carefully constructed public image lay in ruins on the studio floor beside his discarded microphone.